Oh, right. Yeah, I haven't really heard much about anything new about this beef going on. It does seem to have died down a little bit. But this is actually what I thought the last one was going to be with the Lyons and Daniels. But it was more like a podcast, that one was. But then it did explain, I suppose, the start of both beefs was a drug deal gone wrong. But these is like documentaries, well, little mini things of, I guess, step by step um each attack, I guess, each body. But yeah, let's go.
It was the summer of 2001, and Tony Blair had just won a second term in government for Labour. In the tough Milton housing scheme in Glasgow, a plot was unfolding. A large stash of cocaine, worth around £20,000, belonging to the feared Daniel crime family, had been stolen from a safe house on the estate that summer. It had gone missing during a house party at the same address, and the drugs, unsurprisingly, were not returned or paid for. The Daniel family learned that the cocaine had either been sold to or appropriated by a rival organised crime group, the Lyons. At the time, both were battling for control of the drugs trade on the north side of the city. Head of the Daniel family was the formidable Jamie Daniel, one of 4 brothers from the tough Postle Park area of the city. On the other side, the Lyons were led by Eddie Lyons Sr., who ran a community centre called Churnside in Milton. It was claimed that a group based there called the Club Boys, who included his son Stephen Lyons, had orchestrated the theft. In the world of organised crime, a drug debt, no matter how small, must be paid. Failure to do so can result in a loss of face and influence, and Jamie Daniel knew that. The Daniels launched a wave of attacks as they fought to maintain their control of the area's drug trade. This response was orchestrated by 24-year-old Kevin Gerbil Carroll, an up-and-coming figure in the Daniel clan who was close to Jamie Daniel and in a relationship with his daughter Kelly. First, the Daniel crew tried to shoot Stephen Lyons outside a pub in Lamhill, Glasgow, in September 2001, but the gunman missed. They then turned their attention to the Churnside Community Centre, which was torched, causing £30,000 of damage and leaving the minibus trashed. In retaliation, Gerbil was blasted twice in the leg with a sawn-off shotgun outside his mum's house in Milton in January 2003, but survived. Just 11 days later, Eddie Lyons' brother Johnny was gunned down.
See, even that sounds like Irish. The kneecapping. That's a big IRA thing. Yeah. I know there is a link. Is there a link? Celtic, maybe.
Outside his home in nearby Stornoway Street. The wallet in his back pocket took the impact, which doctors think may have saved him. In April 2006, as the feud continued, Kevin Gerbil Carroll drove to Cumbernauld in Lanarkshire, where he blasted another of Eddie's sons, Eddie Lyons Jr., but failed to kill him. In November, Gerbil allegedly used a tow rope to topple the headstone of Eddie Sr.'s late son Gary, who was only 8 when he died of leukemia in 1991. The desecration of his grave marked a new low in the escalating conflict. Gerbil had crossed a line, but was still not satisfied. 2 days later, he ambushed and attempted to shoot Eddie Lyons Jr. for a second time in Bells Hill. Lyons suffered minor injuries when his own car rolled over him, and a henchman was hit with at least 1 round. 8 days later, the Lyons struck back. Gerbil was shot, along with a close associate, Ross Sherlock, in a residential street in Bishop Briggs. Gerbil suffered serious injuries, blasted in the stomach from close range. Sherlock was hit in the legs. The violence then culminated in one of the most brazen murders the city had ever seen. On Wednesday, December 6, 2006, a blue Mazda car drew up outside Apple Row Motors in Balmore Road, Lamhill, shortly after 2 p.m. The garage was owned by David Lyons, brother of Eddie, and was operated by both him and his nephew Mark. 2 men dressed in long black overcoats and brandishing handguns got out and opened fire in what was later described in court as like a scene from The Godfather. 11 shots were fired, leaving mechanic Michael Lyons dead and his cousin Stephen Lyons and their associate Robert Pickett seriously injured. Lyons was in plaster for up to 12 weeks with a broken leg and required part of a bullet to be removed from his back. Robert Pickett, who had served time for attempted murder, was left in a coma for a month and lost a kidney after being shot in the stomach. A bloody gangland feud which had largely been conducted in the shadows was now headline news. Two Daniel associates, Raymond Anderson and James MacDonald, stood trial at the High Court in Glasgow in March 2008. The court heard that David Lyons received a ransom note delivered to his home after the murder, demanding payment of £25,000, the current value of the allegedly stolen cocaine. It read,
"The boys owe me £25,000 and I want what's owed to me. It's for drugs. They all know what it's about. The money doesn't matter to me, as it's got to be paid to the piper."
The multiple shootings, which lasted only a few minutes, had taken place yards from a special needs school. Ironically, the school was to be the venue for a forthcoming public meeting for local people to air their growing fears about rising crime and gangland violence in the area. Already, concerns had been raised about the role of the Lyons family in the running of Churnside and the £1.4 million in taxpayers' money it had received over the years. The murderous events would lead to the closure of the centre and funding finally being withdrawn. High levels of security were put in place throughout the trial, which finished in May 2008. The case was heard in Court Number 3, which has been designed for terrorist accused, and people entering had to pass through a metal detector. Both Anderson and MacDonald were convicted of illegal possession of guns and ammunition, the attempted murder of Stephen Lyons and Robert Pickett, and the murder of Michael Lyons. They had been heard in secret conversations taped by the police talking about the piper, mentioned in the letter sent to David Lyons. After the jury's verdict, Judge Lord Hardy branded Michael Lyons' murder as a cold-blooded, premeditated assassination. He told the guilty men,
"Such activity cannot and will not be tolerated in our civilised society."
Lord Hardy ordered them to serve 35 years each before they could be considered for parole, the highest tariff ever set by a Scottish court. The terms were later reduced on appeal to 30 years. But if his lordship thought the tough sentences would stop the carnage, he was mistaken. Less than 2 years later, Scotland would be shocked by a murder that took the long-running feud to a new and terrifying level.
Gerbil shot by his own gun. Yeah, this was like much better. This really went through everything. And I'm right, that gerbil seemed like a lunatic, but I think he botched most of his things. Granted, he's a head case. But yeah, that definitely was Godfather style, the walking in and shooting. Like how they do Vito. And Fredo drops the oranges. Yeah, that was Godfather. Yeah, that was pretty fascinating though. The thing with the community centre as well, I was thinking then, wouldn't they have had to have proved the family guilty? Because it seemed like they stopped the community centre. Like, would that be legal to do? Because if they haven't actually sentenced or prosecuted any of them, you're kind of doing it just off of the fact that you know that they're criminals. Which is that, I suppose it is allowed, but yeah, that was a bit crazy to me. Because surely you would have to convict the Lions running the centre for something before you, unless they did prove, I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was pretty crazy. But yeah, that was a good one. That was more, like I say, that was more what I wanted. I don't know whether they've done a part 2 of this yet. This came out a while ago. But to be fair to them, there was a lot of information in that. A lot happened in that short space of time. But it is actually good to see, like, I didn't know the gerbil was Daniel's sister's fella. Like there was a lot of little things like that I didn't know. But yeah, that's part one. I'll try and see if there's part two, but I don't actually think there is yet. But yeah, sweet.